in irrigation during the growing season, the Egyptians built up earthen embankments to trap the muddy waters in large catch basins. Thus when Jehovah brought the first plague on Egypt, turning its water to blood, the Nile itself, the water in its canals and reedy pools, and the impounded waters were all converted into blood. X7. 14-25. Other features. Besides supplying water for plants and domestic animals, the Nile was the source of drinking water for the Egyptians. X7. 18, 21, 24. Except during the initial stage of inundation, the water was very palatable. Along the Nile's canals and reedy pools, papyrus plants grew in abundance. These were the source of Egyptian writing material and were used for making boats. Issa 18. 2. The reedy shores and pools were the habitat of many wild birds that fed upon frogs and other small creatures. X8. 5. 9-11. Egyptian pictures show bird hunting being done from small boats. The Nile waters served, too, for bathing. It is recorded that Pharaoh's daughter bathed there. X2. 5. An Egyptian picture presents a very similar bathing scene of a noble woman with her 4 female attendants. The Nile was also the principal highway for the entire land. Boats heading in traveled downstream on the current, while those heading upstream were pushed along by the prevailing winds moving inland from the Mediterranean Sea on the north. Commercial ships from Phoenicia and Crete were able to go upstream all the way to Thebes. Biblical No. Amen. Nile 3. 8 and beyond. The Nile figured prominently in Egyptian defenses against invasion. Its cataracts to the east made the land difficult to attack from the direction of Nubia, Ethiopia, while the swampy land around the delta region hindered the entrance of large armies from the Asiatic continent. Some scholars suggest that Assyrian king Sennacherib's boast of drying up all the Nile canals with his feet signified his confidence in his being able to overcome defensive water-filled moats around Egyptian cities and strongholds. 2K 19. 24. The Nile's cycles served as the basis for the seasonal calendar of the Egyptians, with 3 famine seasons. Akhet, or inundation. Peret, the coming forth evidently of the land as the waters returned to their banks. And Shamu, the dry season summer. The period just after the waters were highest was that of the greatest activity. When high water levels prevailed, construction work was programmed to provide a measure of employment. The symbol of a great sea monster lying stretched out in the midst of the Nile canals, applied to Pharaoh in the book of Ezekiel, is thought to be drawn from the crocodiles that have inhabited the Nile from ancient times. Es 29. 3-5 Frequent, 2, was the hippopotamus, generally identified with the animal designated as behemoth at Job 40. 15. The Egyptians worshipped the Nile as a god of fertility under the name Hapi. This god was depicted as basically male, but with large feminine breasts, the head crowned with aquatic plants, and a fisherman's girdle around the plump waist. Festivals, with accompanying sacrifices, were held annually in his honor at the beginning of each inundation period. Some scholars suggest that Pharaoh's going out to the Nile, mentioned at Exodus 7. 15, relates to some morning devotional act, though it may have been merely for a morning walk or to examine the height of the river. Nile canals. Irrigation canals branch Notex to Acute Muritra Longo, Nineveh 503 Kata location in the S of Moab. Thus many prefer identification with the Wadi Namera, which flows down into the send of the Dead Sea about 17 km 11 mi WSW of Karak. The prophecies foretell that these waters will become mere desolations, either in a figurative sense, because of the desolating of the land, or perhaps because of damming up of their streams by enemy forces. Nimrod, son of Cush. 1ch1. 10 rabbinic writings derived the name Nimrod from the Hebrew verb marmidal.rad, meaning rebel. Thus, the Babylonian Talmud Erubin 53a states, "Why, then, was he called Nimrod? Because he stirred up the whole world to rebel against his God's sovereignty." Encyclopedia of Biblical Interpretation, by Menahem M. Gasher, Volume 2, 1955, p. 79. Nimrod was the founder and king of the first empire to come into existence after the flood. He distinguished himself as a mighty hunter before in an unfavorable sense. Heb. Lipmiddle.net. Against or in opposition to. Compare New 16. 2. 1 ch 14. 8. 2 ch 14. 10 or in front of Jehovah. GE 10. 9. FTN. Although in this case some scholars attach a favorable sense to the Hebrew preposition meaning in front of, the Jewish Targums, the writings of the historian Josephus, and also the context of Genesis chapter 10 suggests that Nimrod was a mighty hunter in defiance of Jehovah. The beginning of Nimrod's kingdom included the cities of Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Karnak, all in the land of Shinar. GE 10. 10. Therefore it was likely under his direction that the building of Babel and its tower began. This conclusion is also in agreement with the traditional Jewish view. Wrote Josephus. Nimrod little by little transformed the state of affairs into a tyranny, holding that the only way to detach men from the fear of God was by making them continuously dependent upon his own power. He threatened to have his revenge on God if he wished to inundate the earth again.